This is going to be a very brief overview of how I'm training Aenon to do channel weaves. And when I mean a brief overview, I mean very brief. I won't begin to go into all the detail that I do here to train him. You can see here I have set up my weave poles into channel weaves with the first weave offset to the left, and then they just go back and forth as the weaves go on down, creating a channel. Aenon is to run through the channel. I'm going to try to push him for as much speed as I can. If you watch in my video, you will see that I can't run well. And so in order to get him to speed through the weaves, even though I'm well behind him, I do a couple of tricks. One is I often will throw a toy at the end of the weaves. This helps him to learn to run as fast as possible through the weaves and beat me out of the poles, which is what I want. The other is I will also send up jumps at both ends of the weave poles, and I will send him out to the jump. I've already trained him how to do an out. In other words, how to work distance away from me. I will send him out to the jump at the end of the weave poles. I will also send him out to the jump at the beginning of the weave poles so that I can get a little bit ahead of him as he comes into the weave poles, and then he gets to play a little bit of a game of chase with me. Using these sorts of devices, I am able to, even though I'm not able to run, I'm able to train him to learn that weave poles are about speed. When the channel is open like this, that's what you're working for, is working on speed. This video was taken on day 3 of Aenon's training. I have already closed the channel up twice, so this channel is not nearly as wide as it was when I first started training him just 2 days ago. So here you will see him working through weave poles on day 3 of his training.
Okay, over. Turn. There you go, buddy. Go, weave. Yeah, out. Yes. Good boy. Yes. Okay, weave. Yeah, good job. Stay. Very good. Stay. Stay. Okay, weave. Go, buddy. Yeah, that was awesome. Ready? Ready? Weave. Yes. Yes, that's it. Good boy. You did it. You are. Are you going to stretch? Turn. You are. Go, stretch. Turn. Weave. Yeah, what a good job. Okay, out. Here, buddy, weave. Go, buddy, go, 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 go. Yeah, good boy.
Every time I narrow the weaves, it becomes more and more difficult for Aenon to find his way through the channel. Because of this, each time the weaves are narrowed, I either have to slow him down or even put the leash on him to gently and with positive methods help him figure out how again to find his way through the channel. I actually don't show that in this video because that process takes a long time, and I don't have 15 minutes of video to upload here to show you going through that process. It only takes about 15 minutes for him, sometimes less, for him to figure out, oh yes, I'm looking for the channel again, even though it's more narrow. As his body begins to make the weaving motion, this becomes even more important, that you be patient. You don't expect your dog, when you close the channel, to automatically know to run the channel. This takes time, it takes training, and it takes patience. Now I am entering phase 2 of our weave pole training. With channel weaves, what you don't see in this video is that I actually went ahead and closed the channel up a couple more times from the last video we have on here until it was just barely open. At that point, I go ahead and just close up my weave poles, spacing them at 24 inches for the venues I show in apart. If you show in a venue that has 20-inch poles, you want to be spacing your poles 20 inches apart. I go ahead and I set up my poles, and I put on these garden gates that you see here. These gates are, you can get them at any local hardware store or garden store. I take them apart, and I take the guide and the two wires that are sticking out from the side, I put up against the pole. That's a real important safety feature. You don't want those sticking out away from the pole into the open where you or the dog can get scraped on them. So those go right up against the pole, and the guides go on the sides of the pole that the dog does not run as they weave through the poles. These guides will help the dog figure out how to get through the poles. The channel was teaching the dog about speed. These guides are going to teach the dog about accuracy. The trick with any help that you use in weaving, whether that help be a channel being open, guides on the poles, or any physical movement you may be giving the dog to help them figure out how to get through the poles, these things need to be faded as quickly as possible. This is where these methods fail. This is where any weave training method fails, is that people start relying on the guides or on their hand signal to push the dog through the pole, or on their verbal count to push the dog through the pole, or on the channels being open. People think, oh gosh, look at this, my dog's weaving with guides on, and because they like the success, they leave the guides on too long. The guides should only be on the 12 poles for a day or two after your dog begins to get the weaving motion. This is the second day Aenon, the video I have here is from the second day that Aenon has had the guides on. He had it on half a day yesterday, and then today. And you will see here that he is already learning how to do his bunny hop. I'm actually going to probably begin pulling these guides up either the next time I train or the time after, depending on how he does, because I do not want these guides on for very long at all, or he will become dependent on them. When you buy the guides, make sure you're getting these green wires and not the white ones, because the white ones are so much more visually apparent. The dogs become more addicted to those and reliant on those guides. Also, if your dog is taller, you may need to get the larger version of these wires. You can use other things too. You can even use wings, agility wings, if you'd like. Many trainers use that instead of these wire guides. This will help your dog adjust to having the poles closed. This phase is teaching your dog about accuracy. The channel phase taught your dog about speed. As soon as your dog gets this accuracy, you begin to push for speed. Now you'll watch video of the guides slowly being pulled up until Aenon is weaving all 12 poles without guides. You'll notice his speed is reduced as the guides are pulled, as he's thinking about what he has to do. Now that he knows how to weave 12 poles without guides, he will be able to speed his poles up in a matter of a few days, and soon he will be speeding through them as fast as he was, even faster than he was when the guides originally went on the poles. In less than 2 weeks, Aenon went from not knowing how to do weave poles at all to weaving 12 poles without guides or any other helps, using this channel method and guide method. Now we're going to work on speed, then we're going to work on weave entrances, and then we're going to work on independent poles. And then Aenon will have his full poles. There are a million ways you can mess up pole training, and this video doesn't do any troubleshooting. I highly recommend that anyone watching it, if they don't have an instructor, get an instructor to help them troubleshoot their poles. If you run into trouble, then you need an instructor. This video is a basic, low production video made to help my students. But if it gives other people kind of a guide on how channel weaves are sort of trained, that would be awesome.